feel like there should be an age limit on this specific episode. Like, if you're over, I don't know, 50 or 60 or something, you can't listen to this episode. You just got to wait for the one tomorrow or something. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. I'm going to talk about swagger today. I'm going to talk about something that's so intangible, that's so not at all to be taken seriously, unlike yesterday's super serious episode about Cam Sutton. And it's going to turn off almost everybody who's either older or acts older, because no one ever wants to hear about swagger. No one wants to hear about guys having ways of showing that they feel good about themselves, or scripted juju-like celebrations, or, and I'm saying this exactly 2 weeks before the players show up at St. Vincent College, arriving in a helicopter or a school bus or a forklift, or only every single vehicle that Brett Kiesel would use to get there. Because that's what made me think of this subject for the day, because I'm looking at the calendar. I'm in Milwaukee covering Pirates versus Brewers this week. And I'm, planning ahead a little bit, and I'm seeing where I'm going to be in a couple weeks. And I'm picturing immediately, because this is the way you used to be with Latrobe, who's going to be the one who puts on a real show, who gets all the headlines. My answer to that right now is that it'll be nobody. And I mean nobody. And it won't even be close. Like, there won't even be one where you say, oh, God, I can't remember his name now. The really mediocre, nothing little wide receiver who showed up in some kind of construction vehicle. This was not that long ago. And then got cut like in camp. I don't script this, and I'm not going to hit pause to go look it up. You can feel free to fill in the name. Little guy, possession guy. Anyway, so he shows up, and it was like, wow, that's really weird. You random person who doesn't have any guarantee of getting through camp, and in fact won't. And that felt like that was it. That felt like it was the kiss of death for the entire practice. Now nobody's going to do it. You go right ahead and try to come up with one name, one player, based on what it is that you've picked up on about these players' personalities, who's going to do that. And I'm going to ask a serious question once again, since all of you who are listening to this are now fairly young, because everybody else tuned out. Do you care, or do you think it's relevant at all that this team isn't really going to have that type of persona to it? If you think about the mid 2010s and into the late 2010s, listen, I know they didn't get it done, but those Steelers teams had some major personalities, to the point where we still talk about those guys and their personalities more than we do about this team's personalities. And no, it wasn't just AB. Yeah, Antonio Brown had the chopper. AB's going to win that one for all time. But Ben Roethlisberger was larger than life in a lot of ways. Le'Veon Bell became a really, really big thing and kind of found a way to keep himself that even after he was done playing. And then on top of that, Juju shows up, ends up owning social media. And I got to tell you, because of that, because of all of those personas or personalities and various affectations that were related to that, I think they kind of scared teams when they came into a stadium. I think there was something about them that felt, to use this term again, larger than life. Not just Ben. I think that put some points on the board before they even got started. And by the way, if any of you older types broke the rules and hung around to listen to this, remember that that's also part of what made the Steelers of the 1970s who they were. It was in a different way. It wasn't on social media, obviously. But when you have Jack Lambert and the missing teeth, and you have Joe Green, and you're lining up across from Mean Joe, and you just got out of the locker room seeing him on the Coke commercial, and you heard all the stories about Arrowhead and LC and Mel Blount and these guys, and they come on a field, and there's something about that. There's something about that. One of the things that I really liked, maybe more than any other, over the course of this summer and the workouts that are now in the past tense, was that these offensive guys really vocally embraced this idea that they're going to be this big physical unit that's going to knock people over. Great. I'm saying that I think it would be kind of okay if there'd be somebody on that offense who would take that on as a personality, who would talk it up, who would jazz it up. I'm all right with that. And you know who else would have been all right with it, by the way? To counter all kinds of false narratives? Chuck Noll. Because if you think Noll did anything at all to tone down his guys when he knew what all that swagger would mean when they took the field, no chance. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Today's J1Q could have been any number of follow-ups to the Cam Sutton stuff from yesterday. Honestly, I'm going to let it go. I said my piece on that yesterday. I am really, really uncomfortable with the Steelers' decision to bring him back. I would welcome hearing a lot more from both Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin on the issue. And I don't have to like it, and I don't like it. But I really don't have a whole lot on which to expound with this. I do appreciate all of the feedback that I got. David asks, so DK, how do the Steelers truly evaluate Justin Fields if he doesn't play in meaningful games? Preseason is not a good indicator, as we saw last year. You know, I don't want to take that concept too far. I know that's going to be like the cool thing to say all through the coming preseason. But I think there's a happy medium in there. You can look at some performances in preseason and say, all right, well, that was a stepping stone for that player. That was real progress. That was something that they showed us that we have to pay attention to. See, you can bring up Kenny Pickett and his immaculate passer rating and everything else from last preseason, and I can counter with Jaylen Warren. Did you take Warren seriously when you saw him in preseason? Sure you did. Of course you did. Well, guess what? You know, he got a job and he ended up being really good. So it's not that it doesn't mean anything at all. It's just that it's not definitive. And I think a lot of people were so excited about what they saw of Kenny in the offense last summer that it was like, wow, this is the greatest. We've finally gone through and couple all that with what Kenny had done for Pitt and winning the ACC and all that other stuff. Anyway, enough of that. I would love to be able to say to you that there's a lot of different ways to see Fields, to see what kind of improvement there is specifically in the area of protecting the football. If you look at his overall numbers over 3 years in Chicago, you're going to find that this was a pretty dynamic performer with results. Meaning positive results, as in, you know, he threw for touchdowns. He ran for touchdowns. He threw for a lot of yards. He ran for a lot of yards. He did a lot of good things. He also gave the football away far too often. There are ways to watch within a preseason setting, even a practice setting, to check on how a quarterback is surveying the field, what their priorities are, what their reads are, how quickly they check down, and of course the basic stuff, the accuracy of the passes and so forth. But when I say that I would love to say that, I mean, I can just come right back with the old Mason Rudolph stuff, because Mason was right there all that time. And he was a very good practice quarterback. The problem with Mason as a practice quarterback is that because he was number 3, he was running the scout team. So nobody cared what he did or how well he did it, because the goal of practice was to make sure that he didn't do it well, because he was supposed to be, Joe Burrow or whoever that week. I remain confused by how they're going to do this. It will be fascinating to watch it play out. And no, I will not be blanketly discounting what I see in preseason. Let's see some good performances. Nothing wrong with that. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody. And yes, that means everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. We're going to do this again tomorrow. All ages.